Hello, Ultra family, and welcome to the first ever Ultraman Explained podcast. This is a little weird because I'm used to just making videos where I can edit out anytime I mess up, or, you know, I got a bunch of resources near me where I can just look up something if I want to look up something. So I'm just warning you ahead of time. This isn't going to be necessarily the place you're going to want to go if you're looking for a super factual, like, calling facts every couple of seconds conversation, because to be honest with you guys, I don't want to spend my time looking up resources while I'm trying to do a podcast, and at the moment at least. And to be honest with you, I want my podcast to come across more as a conversation than say you know, a fact video or watching a PowerPoint or something like that, kind of like the Ultra Theory videos. But getting on to today's topic. Today's topic that we're going to cover, it is just myself. Today we're going to cover Ultraman Xeed, and some of the information that's been released about Ultraman Xeed. Now, the thing is, everybody keeps saying that, you know, is most surprised by the fact he's Ultraman Belial's son, which is extremely exciting. It is extremely exciting. And I'll get into that here in a little bit, but the thing about it is we got to remember is Ultraman has become a very kid-friendly show. So at the end of the day, just because his father's evil, yeah, I do truly believe we're going to see a battle versus light versus dark. I mean, it showed right on the front cover Ultraman Zero as well as Ultraman Belial. So, and they've released a statement already, Tsuburaya Productions has, saying that this new Ultraman GEED, actually as they're pronouncing it, has the ability to call forth the powers of every other Ultraman, and also struggles to stay within the light and the dark. But let us not forget Ultraman Nexus. To those of you who may not be aware of that series, it was an attempt by Tsuburaya Productions to get a little bit more serious with their content, to not make it necessarily, hey, we're trying to be kid-friendly, but like, hey, this is something for a little bit older adults too. Hopefully older adults can enjoy this. Well, what happened with that is it was supposed to be a 55 or something episode series, and they ended up cutting it down to 30-some episodes because the subject matter and everything about it was a little too dark and a little too serious, I guess, for the audience that Ultraman had acquired, such as, you know, the younger-based audience. To where here in America, it seems like the people who are the Ultraman fan are like my age, you know, like, you know, I'm 27, so it seems like a lot of the people I talk to, or here in America at least, are in the ages of, like, say, 18 to 40, or, you know, the people who were old enough to see Ultraman when it actually aired on TBS, and some of the other channels that Ultra 7 actually got to play on. And yes, Ultra 7 was actually aired on live television. But it's with the Ultraman, like, GEED thing, I think that the story of his good versus evil background is going to make a solid story device, I guess. Yes, it will be used in the story, and yes, it might be something that's referred to. But I don't think it's going to be as big as everybody's making it sound. Like, a lot of people are making it sound like we might get our first anti-hero or Ultra, or, you know, kind of like a Punisher Ultra. But keep in mind, we already kind of had one of those with Ultraman Cosmos and Ultraman, what was it? Let me see here. I'm actually checking my movie collection. Ultraman Cosmos and Ultraman Justice. We kind of had that dark anti-hero character in Ultraman Justice. Not Cosmos, but Justice. So I don't think it's going to be the first time we've seen a Punisher-like Ultra, or I guess what you would call an anti-hero Ultra, or like a darker Kamen Rider-like Ultra. But I really don't think they're going to necessarily paint him that way. I think that, like I said, with him being able to use every single one of the other Ultra's powers, and yes, he fights between the two, but they've already released his human name, so he's going to take a human form, much like all of the older Ultramen did. And I just don't think that they'll paint the series that way, especially with how big Ultraman has become nowadays. and especially with how big Ultraman Orb was. Look, I mean, it immediately spawned a sequel within mere moments of the series actually being done. Ultraman Orb Origins came out, you know, and to be honest with you guys, I wasn't a huge fan of Ultraman Orb. I know I'll get some flack for that, but I wasn't a huge fan of Ultraman Orb. It looked almost, as in the episodes I watched about 15, it looked in the show like they were trying to give it a darker tone, like the first episode with those tornadoes that are coming through and just completely destroying the city, and the way that they were animating it and this, that, and the other, like, yeah, that's a little bit darker. But then they threw on that overly kid-friendly element with the way that the human Ultra was portrayed, or the guy, I guess the Ultra in human form was portrayed. I think his name was Guy Kurenai, I'm not sure. I think it was just Guy, I'm not sure. But the way that he was portrayed was way too kid-friendly, and the way that their version of the Science Patrol acted was really, really kid-friendly and kind of offset that dark vibe, when, in essence, I mean, let us not forget what's really happening. Like 4 or 5 gigantic twisters just spawned in the middle of or what appears to be a major city in Japan, and is destroying buildings, and how many people were killed in the process of that. But what they focus on is, of course, you know, Ultraman, of course, defeating this monster and then raising these people who were also extremely close to the incident and never got hurt down to the ground in their car that they were in the middle of a raging tempest. Was completely undamaged. So there are just a lot of problems I had with the series as far as logic, which of course if you're watching any Ultraman show you can't get too into logic, but it's one of those things. It's like, you know, Ultraman Orb was, it just wasn't my fancy. To be honest with you guys, I was more of a fan of the shows like Ultra 7, a lot of the older Ultras. I think the newest Ultra that I've really been a fan of, and it's because of how they did it, and I just think that everybody in that show, it was written so well. It gave me my favorite kaiju bad guy, or monster, whatever you want to call him. And the acting in that show were just amazing. The writing and the acting were amazing. That was Ultraman Mebius. But much past that, I haven't really been too interested or really too intrigued with much of the series that have come out. I love the way they were done previously, even going all the way back to Ultra Q. So do I think that Ultraman GEED is going to be some dark, you know, anti-hero Ultra? No. I personally, I do not believe so. I think, yeah, he'll battle with it. I mean, his father is Ultraman Belial. I mean, how could he not? I mean, Ultraman Belial's like the Satan of the Ultraman universe. So yeah, he'll battle with it, but I don't think it'll be the main premise of the show. Now, I will say on the other side of that, just because I think that doesn't necessarily make that true. You know, they could end up going that direction, and if, I'm just going to say right now, if they end up playing that as like the main storyline for the show, because let us not forget, that like in one of the main pictures that I showed you guys, it was Ultraman Belial and Ultraman Zero on the front cover, and we know that Ultraman Zero and Belial hate each other. So it could be like Zero is there to help Ultraman GEED stay on the right path, maybe trained him, and Ultraman Belial is there to help kind of tempt his son to go to the same way he went and pull him to the kind of evil side, which would be even cooler if Ultraman Belial ended up becoming the main bad guy of the series, because Ultraman Belial really hasn't made any big appearances in any of the Ultraman shows. He has an Ultraman Orb, but never as an actual character, really. He was more of a, oh hey, I'm gonna fuse you together type of character, you know? It's like his appearance did, but he didn't so much. He's mostly been in all the movies, so if he's the main bad guy of the series, and let us not forget, he's one of the only characters, Ultra characters next to Camila, who can go into kaiju form, okay? So let us not forget that. But if he's gonna be possibly one of the main bad guys in this series, and we do get an Ultraman with Ultraman GEED that is an anti-hero and is really struggling between good and bad, but always chooses good just like last second, that could make for possibly, in my opinion, one of the best Ultraman series ever. However, I think that's the way that a lot of the American fans are hoping it'll go. Because we like to see that type of thing. I mean, come on, our culture is obsessed with like the Punisher and all these other characters. But I think in the other countries, where he's seen as more of a children's hero, and people sat down to watch, you know, their shows with their kids and stuff like that, which I'm sure that still happens here in America, but we definitely here in America, you guys know that we have a little bit looser standards on what we, you know, show our kids and we see every day than most other countries. But I think in some of the other countries like Japan, I don't think they would maybe like that much of a dark tone. But then again, Godzilla was really popular over there and that had a darker tone. And Kamen Rider was super popular over there, and there was many versions of Kamen Rider, even though they didn't do well, that had a darker tone. So I think it could be really interesting. I'm really excited to see what's going on, but basically all that they've released so far are the images that I've showed you guys. They also released a statement of his real name, and I want to say it's like Ryuji or Ryuji. I don't remember reading it, and I don't have it in front of me. I'm sorry, a little unprepared. But it's one of those things that I think that, you know, they said that his story is basically going to be that he's Ultraman Belial's son. He has the power to call up every power, or basically every previous Ultra's abilities, and that he walks a path between light and dark, and that's all pretty much they said. I mean, there wasn't much more said after that. The rest was just given to you from the images, which, pardon my language, but what made me the most, I guess I'm not going to use the word, but I guess what made me the most angry about the images they released is, yes, they showed us some really cool stuff. They showed us some really cool stuff. I mean, really cool stuff. Like, they showed us the different versions of the Ultras, which is really cool. They kind of tempted us with some of the different, maybe, versions that Geed's going to turn into, which is pretty cool. But it's clear to anybody who read those or looked at those pictures that they were just literally already, before the show even began, trying to sell action figures. And I think that that's one of the things that, in my opinion, has helped ruined my view of Ultraman. Yeah, it's always kind of been about, you know, trying to have an action figure deal, much like Super Sentai or Kamen Rider, but at the same time, the last few series of Ultraman, I think starting with like Ginga when they introduced the Spark Dolls, was like, okay, now don't get me wrong, Ginga was an excellent series. I will say that I did like Ginga. Ginga surprised the crap out of me. I thought I wouldn't like it. I thought the Spark Dolls thing was stupid, but as the series progressed, I was stunned. However, you know, it just, after that, everything went to the ploy of selling action figures. And it looked like to me in these pictures that they were kind of saying, hey, to the real fans, hey, this is what the Ultraman's gonna look like. But to all of those kids out there who are obsessed with collecting the action figures, here's what our line of action figures are probably gonna look like, and here is what some of them already are. And the show hasn't even started yet. They haven't even given an exact date. All they said it was gonna start this year or maybe early next year. Which would be even crazier because, you know, I just think that'd be awesome. But it's one of those things that's it's kind of strange, and I really hope that the show doesn't just push the action figures super hard, or definitely as hard as, like, you know, Ultraman Orb did with those cards. I felt like I was watching like Yu-Gi-Oh or something. They're using cards and getting monsters on and off of cards. I'm like, dude, what's happening? What is happening? But anyway, I think the series has a lot of possibility with what they've released. I was a little scared by the images and how much they were focusing on the action figures already without the series even being out, or the toys that were supposed to come along with it. But I think that the premise they're giving the show could set it up to be, in my opinion, granted, you know, opinions are plenty, I think that they could be set, what could happen with the series could make it one of the greatest Ultraman series that has come out yet. At least in our generation. I mean, since the early ones. But at the same time, what I've seen done with Ultraman Orb, and everybody seems to really like Ultraman Orb, and I guess I can't agree with you guys on that, but what I've seen done with Ultraman Orb worries me for what Ultraman GEED will become. Yeah, that's about all I can say on that, because, I mean, Ultraman Orb didn't leave me with high hopes for another series, even though I know many of you are like diehard fans of Ultraman Orb. I understand why you like him. I mean, there's a lot to like about the guy, but to me, as a 27-year-old guy who really doesn't collect the action figures, the pushing of all the merchandise throughout the show, I think overclouded a lot of what could have been story and what could have been further plot development and much more content. But that's my, I guess, assessment on the upcoming Ultraman GEED show, I guess at least at the moment, until they release more information. And of course, as I'm releasing this, this is actually currently, I believe, yes, as I'm releasing this, it is April 20th, 2017. So, at the end of the day, who knows what more information will be released. They seem to be releasing a lot of new information pretty frequently. So, we'll see what happens. But that's my opinion as it sets right now. I appreciate it, my Ultra family, for listening to this podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed it. In the future, I will have many more guests on and many more friends, and I've been talking to a lot of people about who are very, very interested in participating. But it's just kind of like figuring out a way to do it. And, you know, I'm new to podcasting, and especially having other people together that aren't with me in the same room. So it's a little bit new to me there, but we will end up having guests and possibly even co-hosts in the future. But as it's going to start out right now, it'll just be myself. But I hope you guys can handle that and listen to me talk for a good amount of time without, you know, running headfirst into a wall. Anyway, if you like this video, definitely share, or listen to me. See, I'm so stuck on the YouTube thing. If you like this podcast or this video, because I might upload this to YouTube too. If you like this video or this podcast, definitely share it around with your friends who like Ultraman, and especially if you think they might have something interesting to say. Maybe there's a way that we can have a discussion with each other, maybe via Skype or via Facebook, you know, Facebook Messenger, and maybe we can just definitely straight up record our conversation and make that what the podcast is, which would be super interesting too, because I know there's a lot of people out there that, a lot of my subscribers that are super competent when it comes to Ultraman, especially like Soulzen, and I have a lot of people from the Ultraman Wiki who watch my channel. So if you guys would ever like to join this podcast, or do like a face-to-face on like Skype, or say, you know, like Facebook Messenger, I can even cut out the face-to-face if you guys don't want your faces shown. But if you guys would ever be interested, or anybody would be interested in something like that, definitely get a hold of me via the Facebook page. The best thing to do is message me. I might be a little bit slow in getting back to you, but I promise I make as much effort as possible to answer every email, message, and, you know, comment that I'm given. So anyways, I hope you and guys enjoyed this first podcast episode here. I'm a little new to this, so bear with me if it was kind of tough, but you guys have a wonderful day. Be safe, and thank you for joining the Ultra family, and I can't wait to have many, many more people join and have the family grow and meet many, many more awesome people. Thank you all so much. Have a good day.